Hey, hello, and welcome, or welcome back. And this is part 4 of our Diablo-like series. And we are going to be working on some combat. We're going to be whacking some goblins in this one. And in this one, we're going to focus on some player combat. Okay, I have some enemy goblins in the level, but they're just going to stand there and take it like little bitches. All right. And so we can just whack away at free will. And we're also going to see some blade auras like fire, cold, and poison that you can equip on your blade, but they will decrease mana or dark matter. And we'll also see a couple spells you can cast to hurt the enemies as well. And one is like a forward shooting firewall, and the other is like a fire nova. Okay, so let's just get right into this. And again, I told you that she was probably going to change that chick I put in last time, and this is going to be the final for that spot. And I'm in love with this character. And again, she's from Mixamo, which I just adjusted a very little bit. And she's called the Occult Blood Witch, as you can see. And I started out testing with the Demon Knight for a while, and because he was my favorite at first, but now she's my favorite. I like her the best. And we're going to go with her and check her out. So there she is, and we've got a round circle of enemies here that we can test the Nova on, and then we've got a whole bunch of enemies right here, which we can test the straightforward shooting firewall on. Okay, now you can, and a lot has changed. Okay, so let's go over some of that actually before we get into the battle. All right. This button here opens up a menu where you can select which spell you want. So if we click Fire Nova right here, I don't want to kill anybody yet. Well, I mean, I guess we could. So we right click and shoot that off, and that's what that does. And you click Firewall and get Firewall. But you can also melee attack by clicking on an enemy. Okay. So let's say I want to kill this guy. Once I click on him, you'll notice this little marker that acts as a health bar as well. Okay. And it shows up on every enemy you click to go attack. And like I said, again, acts as a marker and a health bar for that enemy. Okay. Now, this occult blood witch, I want her to use dark matter instead of mana. Okay, and that's why these have changed to like Reapers. They're going to be specifically for her class only. All the other classes will have the demon and the angel that you saw in the previous ones. All right. And if you notice, I've also updated the health and mana bars, or for her dark matter, to kind of have that swirling liquid inside. Okay, I wrote a shader for these, and yeah, that looks really good. So that would be another video in itself if you guys want to see it. I'm not going to deal with the shader I wrote for this for right now. Just the combat stuff and what's linked to the combat right now. But if you want to see a video on how to make a shader to make that kind of swirling liquid in there, then like the video and leave a comment saying you want to see that. Okay, and if it gets enough likes and comments, let's say 20. If we can get 20 likes and 20 comments saying that you want to see this shader I made for the health, all right, then I'll make one. But for now, we're going to focus on combat stuff. But I also want to show you a bug in Unity. Okay. Now, for the health and this is dark matter, but for the health and mana, I call them red and blue. Okay, and I've never had any issues with them since I've made the shader. All right, but this one for dark matter is supposed to be a deep purple. No, not the band. I love the band too, but the color. It's supposed to be like a deep purple. But instead, we're getting this, Pepto Bismol sickening kind of pink. Okay, that's not the color it is. All right, that's the color that Unity is showing it as, and it's a bug in Unity. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you. All right, I've already built the project to test if it's an editor-based bug or if it's something happening in the game. But here, I'm going to show you. We're going to go to build profiles, and I'm going to build it out. Okay, I already have a build, and I'm going to rebuild it in there. Okay, it's going to build it right now. It's only going to take about 20 seconds or so because it's already built, or at least it should only take about 20 seconds. But once it does, we're going to go right into that build, and I'm going to show you the true color of that dark matter and what it actually looks like in the editor without that bug. Okay, because it's like I said, it's a deep purple. It's not that Pepto Bismol shit. So here's the build. Let's open it up. And let's go and pick her again. And now look, deep purple. Okay, this is the color it's set to in the editor. And this is the, like I said, dark matter. The mana is blue. But for some reason, purple is bugging out the fucking editor. And who knows? Classic Unity bullshit. But yeah, that's the color it's supposed to be. And now if we go back in here and play it again from the editor, you'll see that Pepto-Bismol pink. Okay, Unity loves its pink for problems, but on materials. But like I said, you saw the true color, so it's supposed to be like a dark purple, and it is a dark purple. It's just Unity fucking me without even buying me dinner first. So anyway, let's get back to combat. Okay, you can click on an enemy, and your hero will run over to them and attack them. You get the marker plus health bar that appears over them when they're selected. You can select spells, okay, and take out whole groups. And I don't know if I showed you the firewall or not yet, but we're going to go see it right now. So this whole row, I can take them out with this firewall. Boom. Oh, well, if it was more straight on, I'd be able to. Okay. So that's combat so far. Okay. And hope you're buckled in and you got a drink and a snack because this one's going to be a little bit. We've added a lot to the code to make this happen. So, uh, and as you can see too, mana is regenerating slowly over time. And I've also got a visual to tell you how much is in it at the moment. Right now we're at 10 out of 25. And health won't decrease because nobody's attacking me right now. So that's what's happening there. And right here, this is supposed to be like left click, right click stuff. So when you left click this button, you'll get this menu for whatever spells are going to be available. These are just like placeholders. And when you click one, over here, we're going to have like an icon for the Nova or the Firewall. And for now, I'll probably just put text in it to tell you which one you've got. But that's supposed to be like your right click action. And then this one is your left click. So that's what's going on there. And up here you can see just barely translucent is the back to what's going to be an experience bar, but I'm not dealing with that right now. Down here, you've got a stamina bar. So if I start running around, you'll see that that starts decreasing, and she'll be forced to walk when it gets to 0. And when you stop running, it will regenerate as well. Okay. So let's start checking this out, shall we? Open reset. All right. So the enemies. Let's talk about them for a second. All right. So far, every single model in this game is made with Mixamo stuff. Okay. It's almost like a can you build a whole game with only Mixamo characters challenge, which is interesting too. So, yeah, they're all Mixamo guys, and I picked this guy here because he represents a good goblin and gave him a sword for when he attacks. And let's take a look at his code real quick. Okay, called it enemy AI. All right, and for when he's attacking and stuff, he's already got a detection radius, an attack range, and a cooldown in between his attacks. It's got a sound for when you're attacking him, he plays that little sound, the grunting sound. It's got a transform for the player, so he can detect the player. It's got a nav mesh agent declaration here to grab his nav mesh agent component in the inspector. And he's got a float called last attack time, which works with the cooldown. And then he's got a health bar image, max health, and current health. All right. Now the health bar image is that little skull and bones you saw appear over his head. All right. And what that is it's just um, this image right here. All right. And on that image, you can see this one's simple, but on that image, over it, I have the exact same thing, but I changed it to a filled image so we can use it as a, a health bar. All right. And the one below it is red. Okay. And the one above it is white. So if you could see the image on the screen, because right now it's way off screen, but we can go see it. There it is. And what I do is I move it off screen when you don't have an enemy selected by clicking on them. And then when you click on one of the enemies, it moves it to that enemy and just above their head. But this is it on the canvas off screen. And if I change the fill amount value on the child, you'll see that it starts filling up the health bar like that. So I think that's a really cool way to not only mark the victim you want to go attack, but to show their health bar as well. So that's all I did there. I used the same image and I just gave it the filled, and then on the enemies, just pick one in particular here. On the enemies, when I click them, then it moves that above their head. All right. So that's the health bar. I just showed you right here. The public image is that health bar, and it changes every time because like each one has you got to declare that health bar image, but I do that and click to move in the player's code. I when I click on an enemy, I'll show you. I have a public game object. Where did I put it? See, there's a lot of stuff that wasn't there before. Called temp enemy. Where did I put him? Where is he? Right here. a private game object called temp enemy, and I started off equal to null. All right. So this is how I do this. And I use this temp game object. And when I click on one of those enemies, I set that enemy to be the temp enemy. That way I can access it through my own code very easily. Okay. And then when I click away or like on the ground off that enemy, I set temp enemy back to null so that the next enemy can use it or the next thing I click on. Okay. So that's how I'm selecting them as, and I set the health bar. Excuse me. I set their health bar as temp enemy's health bar using the one I showed you. So every time I click on a new enemy, they reuse the same image on the canvas because I'm telling them to. So that's what's happening there. That's why they only use the one image, but can all use it for their own health bar. All right. And then in the start, we get the agent and declare it, get component and nav mesh agent. And then this we really don't need, so I'm going to comment it out because I was having issues with null reference exceptions because you load the player in. Like those enemies are already in the level when it loads. So if I started doing things with the player, I might get a null reference exception because the player hasn't loaded in yet. It could be a second before he's loaded in. So I started off with that. I waited a few seconds and then checked for the player. But instead of doing that, I simply put this line in the update and I say that, if the player's null, just return. Don't continue with this stuff yet. And then when the player's loaded and you can see it, it goes past this. Okay, and then we've got a sound declaration to get the audio source component on the enemy, an animator component declaration to get the animator, and it also sets the enemy's current health to their max health. So those goblins have 100 for max health. All right, and let's just see that again real quick. The player on a normal swing. Oh, and I didn't show you that either because, like I said, you have auras on your sword. Okay, and they're kind of like a passive offensive aura that adds more damage to your attacks. So I've got them set with keys right now. So if I press one key, you can make a fire aura like that. Okay. And then another key, you can make a cold aura. And then another key, you can make a poison aura. In each aura, let's turn it off for now and go attack this guy. And there's also this slash attack. Okay. And look at the color. Right now it's gray, right? See one more time. See, it's kind of like grayish white. Okay. But if I put an aura on, then the slash turns the color of the aura as well. So that if I go to blue for cold, now you got the slash becoming blue. If I go to green for poisoned, then the slash becomes green. And you'll see it's taken mana away as I use that aura. But now that it's off, my mana's, or dark matter for this character, is regenerating slowly. And I fucking hate that pink. It's supposed to be purple. Anyway. So yeah, they have 100 health, and the player does, I think it's like 3 to 8. Yeah, minimum damage is 3 and maximum damage is 8. And it picks randomly between them, sort of like in Diablo. Ranged attacks usually have a minimum amount of damage and a maximum amount of damage. So that's why I did that. But, and I know we're on the enemy, but I'll just show you because we're talking about this right now in the player. But, this one. Ah, okay. So this one right here is the check per hit that we use on the melee attacks. And you'll see that once we get an enemy, and we attack, attack damage is going to equal a random dart range between min damage and max damage. But if the blade aura is greater than 0, because I made that an int, all right, and I gave each aura a number, because eventually you're going to want enemies that are resistant to poison or whatever. But you need to know which aura is what. So I gave them each a number, and 0 is no aura, and then 1 through 3 is fire, cold, and poison. So if blade aura is anything other than 0, above 0, then I just simply right now add 5 to the damage. So it'll first pick the min damage between 3 and 8, and then it will add 5 to that damage if the blade aura is active, and then tell the enemy to take the damage. All right. So yeah, once the player's loaded, it checks to see, if current health is greater than 0, because they've got a health of 100 and start at that. But while their health is greater than 0 in the update, we got to float for distance, and this is just to check where the player is compared to them for their attacking. But again, right now we're going to deal with the player's combat. So I took out the destination and stuff for now, and I just have them stand there. But eventually, when I'm ready, when I'm done with the player stuff, we'll move on to the enemy attacking back, maybe in the next part. All right. And then the important part is the take damage. Okay. So the player gets this function from the enemy script, and we can get rid of this debug log. We don't need that anymore. And it when I like I said when after you attack, you get the enemy script, and you tell it to run the take damage function and assign the attack damage to that. So in the take damage float amount, it would be the amount I just showed you. Okay, and then they're going to play an animation, a hit animation. So it's like once you hit them with the sword, they play an impact kind of animation, like they got hit. Then they play a sound, and I don't know if you heard it or not. Let's hear the sound. Okay, kind of a little creature squealing sound. So they play that sound, and we change the pitch, all right, of the audio source component by sound.pitch to a random range of either zero point 0.8 or 1.2, so that it sounds a little different every time. And then the take damage, it takes its current health and subtracts the amount that we set in the player's code. And then it plays a sound, which is right here. It's because here we change the pitch, and right here we play the sound with the updated pitch. And then it updates the health bar that I showed you to match its current health. So that's the enemy. But again, we're focusing on not the enemy's combat, but the enemy just being able to take damage from us for testing. So it's the player that we want to really go through on this one. So again, a lot has changed, so this is going to be a little bit. I'm sorry, it's going to be a little bit of a longer one, but now we're getting into more complicated stuff, and you can expect that in the future because Diablo 2 is a complicated game. All right, it's got complicated systems and stuff, and it's going to take some time. The stuff we did previously. Excuse me. I really need to quit smoking. Yeah, the stuff we did previously was all pretty basic, but now we're getting into the meat and potatoes of a game like this, and it's going to take a little longer, and even longer than that if I keep yapping, so I'll shut up. So, the player code, let's see all the differences, and hopefully I don't miss anything. We've added some new usings, like the system collections and the event systems. And then we've added this new public int called spell type. And that's how you change the spells. Okay. And I'll show you that too. So when we click on this button to get this menu, we've got Fire Nova and Firewall. Okay. If I click Fire Nova, then the canvas, which houses the code for this, tells the player's code to set that int to its respective number, which I think is 1. So now when I right click, boom, they're dead. Okay. But if I change it to Firewall, okay, and I hit it, then the canvas tells the player's code to set that into 2. That way you can get the different spells, all right? So that's what that does. It's a int to change your spell, okay? And on the canvas, I've got a script called access objects, okay? Because once again, the player is not in this scene when when I'm adding things, you know. So it's a lot of times you can't just drag something from the scene onto your prefab because it needs to be on an active game object in the scene. So you got to find workarounds. And for this, I'm using another script on the canvas, just like the health bar controller is on this canvas that we made in the last one. I created a new script and put that also on the canvas, and it's called access objects. And that way we can access this the same way we access the health bar and get references to everything we need. I can't just drag onto the player prefab. Okay. Like for instance, the attack panel. Okay. I've got it set as a game object so that I could turn it on and off with the buttons. All right. And then, it's got a public game object called player, which is equal to null at first. And then the player will tell this, I'm that object. So it stops being null after that. And then assigns it to the player. Okay. And then, I put some functions in here to show the panel that I showed you and to hide the panel. Okay. And then the two selections for the buttons. So if you select Vortex, because on this character, the Blood Witch, I want that Fire Nova to be more of a Vortex spell. But I'm just using what was already put in for the Demon Knight right now until I do that, which is the Fire Nova and the Firewall. So both of these are going to change for this character, but I'm using them to just to show you. All right, all right. So yeah, so like I said, this is on the canvas. I'll show you real quick. If I select the canvas, you'll see that not only does it have the health bar controller script, but now it has the access object script. And I dragged that panel into here. And then, of course, the player, which is null until I tell it not to be. All right. And yeah, uh, it's a little confusing. I know there's kind of a lot to take in from the last one, so I apologize for that. But yeah, this is all this is. If you want to copy it and put it on your canvas, because you'll need it for if you're following along exactly as I'm doing. And then that's the rest of it. And yeah, so right here, after spell type is access objects, the script, and I call it AO here. Okay. And down in the start, I say AO equals GameObject.findCanvas dot get component access objects. So now anytime I write AO, I can access the functions of this script. Okay. Just like we did with the health bar, which really I probably could have called HB to save time, but I called it health bar. I smartened up and put AO for access objects to make it shorter. And that's how we get it right here in the start menu. It's just like we did the health bar. We get the canvas object by finding it by name, and then dot get component of the script on it we want. And now it's AO. So now, like I told you, I set the player to not be null right here. AO, this script, I tell this script, AO dot player, which it's set to null, to be equal to this game object, which is now me, the player. Okay. And then the skull, we do the same thing. That the marker health bar for the enemies, that's the skull. So, and that's up here somewhere too, right here. A private rect transform. Okay. Skull. So we set that private rect transform skull equal to GameObject.find by name skull, and then get the component of rect transform off it. Okay. And then you got the agent, the health bar. All this stuff is basically the same. All right. Um, I disable all blade auras with a function just to start. Um, but everything else is basically the same as it was. That's the only new stuff is the AO and the skull. All right. Then in the update, I've added this if statement saying that if key down escape application.quit. I had to add this because I made the build. And when it's in build, you can't get out of it unless you have an escape or some kind of key to hit to quit it through application.quit. So that's why I added this because of the build. And basically only made the build to test that stupid Pepto-Bismol glitch in my dark matter. So that's what that is. And I mean, you might as well put it in there if you're going to build your game and want to get out of it. Put something like this in application.quit off some type of input. I use the escape key, input get key down, key code dot escape. All right. And then all these are to enable the auras. So Z, X, C, and V. In the last one, I was using them to show you decreasing and increasing the health and mana. All right. So since that was done, I took the mana and health part out, and I'm using them to enable and disable the blade auras on the sword. So Z enables the fire aura, X the ice aura, cold aura, C the poison aura, and then V disables all auras so that mana can regenerate. Right. And then let's see if health bar dot current mana, or in this character's case, dark matter. See, the dark matter is just going to be the mana. We're still going to use the mana variable. Really, it's just a matter of I wanted it to look deep purple and be called something different for this character. But as far as code is concerned, it's still mana. So if the health bar script dot current mana is less than or equal to 0, then I disable all blade auras. Okay, which is it's kind of like an automatic cutoff because, like I said, if you notice, we're gonna get one of them going here. Okay, now I put the fire on. You'll notice dark matter or mana is going down as you have it active. And it should basically two-shot these enemies with this on, because it's adding 5 extra damage. But if I'm attacking and mana runs out, I don't want that to keep going with that aura, because that's, cheating. You don't have the mana for it. You shouldn't be able to use it. So what it does is that line of code I just showed you, we'll wait a second for this mana to go out. It takes that aura right off if you don't have enough mana for it. And I could use a spell or something, but it's almost gone. So Z0, and it should go off right there. Okay. So that's an automatic cutoff for the auras, is what this line does. If the current mana is less than or equal to 0, you can't use blade auras, is what it's saying. All right. So that's new. And then more blade aura stuff. If the blade aura is greater than 0 and the health bar current mana is greater than 0, then what we do is we take the health bar current mana and we start decreasing it. That's what this line does. It decreases the mana while using that aura. Okay. And it does that by saying health bar dot current mana equal to mathf dot move towards. And then it takes in the current mana and 0, which is if the current mana is, say, 10, it's moving it towards 0, is what this is doing. So if it's 10 and this is 0, it's moving it towards 0. So it's decreasing, and it's doing it by time.delta time times health bar dot mana drain speed times 2. All right. And then the next line, if blade aura equals 0, okay, and health bar dot current mana is less than the max mana, then this line increases it when you're not using the aura, or when it's at 0. So it would be the same health bar to current mana, math f dot move towards, and this time we're taking the current mana and the max mana instead of 0. Instead of going from whatever we're at to 0, we're going from whatever we're at to the max. So we're increasing, regenerating the mana. And again, we're doing that by time.delta time times health bar dot mana drain speed. And you'll notice I don't have the times 2 because regeneration typically takes more time than usage. So that's why I did that. All right. And then health bar dot update mana bar after we do these things. So it updates visually on the UI while you're playing. Whew, so much. All right. So after that, we have an if statement to check if get mouse button is down. It's set to 1. That's for the right mouse button. Okay. Because the left mouse button is reserved for clicking the ground to move to that destination. It's reserved for clicking on an enemy to go do a melee attack, and it's reserved for clicking on UI buttons and interfaces and stuff. That's what the left mouse button is reserved for. So we're making the right mouse button the official spell casting button. Okay, so if input get mouse button down 1, right mouse button, then we check to see what the spell type is. If spell type equals 1, okay, then that'll be the vortex or fire nova that she's using right now. All right. And it also checks to see if it's not only the correct spell type, but if you have enough mana to cast the spell, just like the auras. It's making sure you have enough mana to cast the spell. And then right here, what it's going to do is this ray to screen point is because this vortex, I want to be able to click anywhere on the screen. All right. Like for the Nova, it makes sense to have it at the player's position. But this vortex I want to make, which is kind of going to be like a black hole, I want to create like a black hole vortex that, say, if I click here, okay, then it'll create the vortex here, and it'll have a an overlap sphere detection, and anything within its range it detects, it's going to suck them in like a black hole and kill them. So it's kind of like a reverse Nova, but I want to be able to put it wherever I want instead of having it at the player's position. All right. So that's what these lines are going to be for. Right now, they don't do anything except the debug.log. All right. And you'll notice I didn't get that log because, again, we're checking to make sure if mana's has enough mana. But technically, if I restart this, without using any mana and I click somewhere, why am I not getting that? Normally it prints it out for me. Why am I not getting that? Huh. Okay, but we should be getting that for some reason. I'm not, and I'll have to check into that. But anyway, that's what that's going to do. But for now, it skips past this, and if spell type is the Nova, it calls this function cast fire Nova, and then it decreases the mana by the current amount. So, and if spell type is 2, and you've got enough mana for that, then it plays the cast animation, and that animation calls the function for the firewall. Instead of just calling the function for the Nova like we did here, I'm calling it through the animation, through an animation event. And then I decrease the current mana again by the amount it costs. All right, but cast Fire Nova, let's go check that out. All right, so cast Fire Nova. Fire Nova dot play. What number is this? 196. Fire Nova is a public particle system right here called Public Particle System Fire Nova. And then it just plays that particle system. Okay, so on right click, if you have enough mana, it calls this function that plays that particle system. Okay, and then it starts this coroutine, which is going to check for the damage. Okay, and let's go see that right now. All right, so this I enumerator coroutine, Fire Nova Explosion. All right, it's got a max radius and a grow speed. Okay, and where we called it right here, you'll notice we had 8 and 40 F for floats. So that is the max radius, and that's the grow speed. Okay, max radius of 8, and the grow speed is 40. So it's like a nova. It starts out small and then grows out, is what it does. And it grows by 40 for that. So, so yeah, max radius and grow speed. All right, and then it sets the current radius to 0, so it starts out at nothing. And then it does vector 3 center equals transform dot position plus vector 3 up times zero point 0.5. So it raises it up just a little bit off the ground, and that's only if you need it. I'm not sure if we do or not, but I put it in there and it works, so that's fine. And then it takes the sound component off the player and it plays one shot, the fireball sound effect I have for it, and it plays it at the volume of 40. Okay. And that is an audio clip. So the fireball sound is an audio clip. I made a public audio clip, called it that, and then I dragged my sound in the inspector into that slot. All right. Same with the footsteps or the sword slash. They're all audio clips that the audio player plays. All right. So we play the sound, and then in the while loop of the coroutine, we check to see if the current radius is less than the max radius, which I believe is 8. And instead of using a solid number like 8, you want to use something like max radius because as you say level up from experience, you can get points to increase, spells and stuff. So like a level 1 Nova might be 8 for a radius or even less, whereas a level 10 Nova might be like 15 or 20 for a radius. So you want to use a max radius variable for that to grow to. So it does while current radius less than max radius, then the current radius plus equals the grow speed, which we set to 40, times time, not delta time. So it goes out really fast because the Nova is like a fast attack. And then it gets colliders equal to physics overlap sphere, center and current radius. All right, and that's an array, the collider array called hit colliders. So for each collider, and hit colliders, we check to see if collider.compare tag equals enemy, which it does. They're all set to enemies. Then we get the enemy AI script called enemy and set it equal to collider.getComponent enemy AI script. Okay, so we get the script so we can access it. Then again, if the enemy is not null, just a safety, we say enemy take damage, and for the Nova, we've got a random dot range of 50 to 100. Okay, which is a little much for what like a first level would be, but again, is just for testing. Then after that, we got a yield return null inside the while loop. You want that so you don't blow up your computer. And that is the Nova coroutine, the Fire Nova. Okay. And then let's show you the animator. So which player, go to animator. All right, so cast. This is what happens when your spell type is number 2. Okay, when you right click, it plays this animation. Now, if I go into this animation, you'll see that in the events, we have an event, which is cast fireballs, because originally it was a fireballs spell, and I still have it on here. I'm just not using it, which is actually really cool. But the boulders have collision, and I wasn't sure how I wanted to work with that, because both these effects I got off the asset store. They were free on the asset store. So as far as that one goes, I wasn't sure how I wanted to work with the collision on the fireballs. So I just used the firewall instead, which I'm glad I did because it's a really cool effect. And I just kept this function called cast fireballs, and I just switched out the particle effect. So that's why it says cast fireballs. It's really a firewall. All right, but this event type, it casts the particle, and then, well, it casts the function that does the particle. So in our case, it was cast fireballs. And then the object should, well, that should have been the, why did that change? Yeah, that should have her in it. Not sure why it worked without it, but okay. But okay, so that's what that does. All right. And if we go see that function to cast fireballs right here. All right, so here's the function that that animation is calling. Okay. All right, it says fireballs.play. Let me just show you real quick here. Um, public particle system fireballs. All right. For that, well, I can even show you on her. For that, I dragged in the firewall particle effect. See, that's so it says fireballs, but firewall here. I should have changed it before this making this tutorial, but I like to be confusing. So I dragged in my firewall effect into that slot. All right. So that's why it all still says fireballs. Sorry for that, but it doesn't matter. So cast fireballs is really a firewall. It plays the particle effect, plays the sound for it at 40 volume. All right. It gets a vector 3 origin. All right. And again, it's just above the ground, which is fine. And then we make a vector 3 forward offset. Okay. And let's explain this a little bit because we're using a raycast hits physics box cast all. I don't know if you ever heard of that one or not, but it lets us create a kind of squared or rectangle shape collision physics box. All right, and I'm making it a rectangle. All right, and what it does is it wants like a center point. All right, so let's say I wanted it to go out in 40 in length, 40 units in length. Okay, then you need, just like it's called, half extents, because whatever you put here, okay, I put 20, it would be 20 ahead of you, but also 20 behind you, is what it's saying. So to have a 40 unit long one, you need to put 20 here because you're getting 20 in front of you and 20 behind you. Okay. So because I wanted it all in front of me, I took the forward offset and used my transform dot forward and times it by 20. Okay. So that way, the 20 that was behind me is now 20 in front of me, and the 20 that was ahead of me is now 20 plus 20 in front of me. So all 40 is in front of me doing it this way. All right. And then the origin, which was here, I set plus equals forward offset, which is right here. Okay. So I'm putting this 20 units in front of me, but it's 40 units long. Do you get what I'm saying? So it's, yeah, 20 is the center of it. So it goes 20 back right to the player, and then 20 ahead, which is 40 ahead of the player. I hope that makes sense. All right. And then the extents, again, we're here. So 3, it's really 6 wide, 6 units wide, because 3 on each side. Okay. and then 0.5 for the height. But it's really the width and the length that we're concerned with, which we're saying 3 and 20, but in reality, it's 6 and 40. Okay, because again, you're going from the center of it. So after that, you get a vector 3 direction equaling transform.forward. Quaternion rotation equals transform rotation. Okay, and then a float called cast distance, which is a small distance in the box here. So it's just a little bit in front of you, which you really don't need because I already put it 20 in front of me. But, instead of 0, make 0.1. Then we do array cast, array hits, okay, just like we did below. And this one, except this one's a box cast all. And we do the origin, the half extents, the direction, rotation, and cast distance, which we've covered all up here. And then for each hit and hits, and again, we check for the enemy and hit collider.compare tag. We get the enemy's script, and we tell it to take damage. And again, the same damage, 50 to 100, just like in the Nova. All right. And then the slash attack is when we use melee and attack them like we were. Okay, so that's this, and it does the same thing as the Nova. We play an animation called slash, and in that slash, we use an animation event to do what we need to do, and that would be check for hit. So from that animation, we're running this function called check for hit. So this is a melee check, okay? And we're basically doing the same thing with the box cast all, except it's really tiny. As you can see, I made it 0.5 wide, which is actually only going to be 1 unit wide, by 1 unit long, which is actually 2 units long, and 0.5 for the height. And this is just to check for that one enemy in front of us, okay, for when we're using the sword. So it's the same exact thing we just did, but it's much smaller. All right, it's just to check for one enemy. All right, and then if we hit an enemy for the damage, again, we do the random dot range min damage max damage. We check for the blade aura, and we add damage to it if that's active. All right. So a lot to take in, isn't it, on this one? A lot of changes I made to this, so. But it's very cool stuff. So where were we now? We were right here talking about using the magic. That's why I started explaining all that. So again, a spell type equals 1. Then we do the Fire Nova. And eventually it's going to be a vortex that I can put anywhere on the map with this. But for now, we simply cast the Fire Nova. And if it's 2, then we play that cast animation, that its animation event plays the Fire Nova, Firewall. Okay, so now that we're through that, we go down to if get mouse button down equals 0, which is the left click. Again, this is for movement and melee attacks in UI. So if event system.current is pointer over game object return. This line checks to see if the mouse pointer is over a UI object because let me show you. All right, so I can move there by clicking, left clicking. But if I'm right here and I don't have that line and I try to open this menu, she would run down here even though I'm clicking on a button, which isn't what we want. We don't want her to move when there's UI between her. Okay, so that's why we did that. And let's kill somebody while we're here. All right, so that's what that line of code does. If event system.current is pointer over game object, return. Okay, so don't do anything else. And when I say event system, that's because we're using the Unity system event system. And we're using the system collections so that we can do the coroutine. All right, so that's what that line does. Then next we go down to the ray, and it's ray called ray equals camera.main screen point to ray, and it's the mouse position, input.mouse position. And that's how we detect where to move to. And then it does its raycast, and it looks for uh, two layers. It looks for an enemy layer and a ground layer. All right. And so int layer equals hit collider.gameObject.layer. All right. And you'll notice that like the ground, I made a ground layer. And to do that, you just say add layer, and you got a bunch of empty ones, and you can just put one in the empty one, and then when you get out of it, you'll have it. So I set the ground to the ground layer, and I set the enemies to an enemy layer. Okay. So it checks the two layers right here, and it says layer, hit collider, game object layer. If the layer is enemy, then we set our null temp enemy game object variable equal to the hit collider game object. So by doing this, we have now made the enemy we clicked on our temp enemy. Okay, and that is what we use a lot in here for the attacks and stuff. All right, and then the stopping distance we change to 2 because we want to be in front of the enemy when we attack it, not on top of the enemy. So I give that a fallback of 2, room for melee. Okay, and then it returns. And else if it wasn't an enemy layer, if it was the ground layer, then we set the temp enemy back to null for future use. And then we tell our navmesh agent that the stopping distance equals now 0.1, so we can basically go right on top of wherever we click, and then we set the destination to the hit point. So, yeah, right here is what decides whether we go attack someone or we move to the spot using the navmesh agent. And then after that, we get a float called speed, and it's equal to agent dot velocity magnitude. And I believe this was in the last one because it's just movement. All right. But what's going to change here is now we've got an if temp enemy does not equal null. Okay. So if temp enemy does not equal null, that means we clicked on an enemy. So what we're going to do is get its code again, and then make sure the script isn't null, and then we update their health bar right away because let's say I just got done killing an enemy, and that little skull and crossbone marker slash health bar obviously was all red because I have it kind of fill up with red as you're attacking. Well, then when I click on a new enemy, it's going to be red for a second until they update their health bar on their own. Okay. And then it would turn right. So it would start off all red and then turn white and then start growing red again. And that's not what you want. You want it to be whatever their current health is right off the bat. Okay. Otherwise, it's, you know, unprofessional. It doesn't look right. So what we do is as soon as we click on an enemy and they're not null, we get their script and update their health bar so that, let's say if they had 100 health, all that red would be gone. It would be all white and it would be ready to move, which we do. All right. And then Agent dot set destination, temp enemy, transform position. So we set the enemy's position to our nav mesh agent. And then we get a vector3 screen position, camera.main world to screen point. And we use the temp enemy we just clicked on, his position, plus vector3 up times 2. So we use that to set the skull position to the screen position. And the plus 2 is so it's a little above its head. Okay. So that skull goes right to the player, enemy, and then sets it 2 above his head. And we do that right here. But again, we update the enemy's health bar first, so it starts out with what their health really is and not with what the last enemy's health was. That makes sense? And then we get if vector3 dot distance, the player's position and the enemy's position is less than 2, then we want to make sure we're looking straight at it. So we do a transform dot rotation equals a quaternion look rotation. And we set it to a new vector3, which is the temp enemy dot transform dot position x minus player dot position x 0 temp enemy dot position z minus transform dot position z. All right, we're just using the x and the z, so because the y doesn't matter, we want to be in the same y, so that's why I was saying 0 there. And then we go to an if statement saying if time dot time minus last attack time is greater than attack cooldown, because the player uses a cooldown too on his attacks. So if the cooldown is over, then we call this slash function, which I believe I already just showed you. And that's what runs the swing of the sword animation, and then we play a sound for the sword. And then we set the animation to play. We slash.play. And then we reset the cooldown timer right here. And if temp enemy does not equal null, we would just went through that. Else, that means either the enemy we just clicked on is dead or we clicked on the ground, but either way, we want that skull marker off the screen. So what we do is take the skull position again and set it to a new vector3 of minus 1000, minus 1000, and 0. That way it's way off the screen and we don't have to worry about it. And when we click on another enemy, obviously I showed you we move it to them. All right, then we set anim.setFloat speed to speed, and this is where we're moving. So now there's no enemy selected. So we want to, if we're moving, and of course they default to running, this is where the stamina comes in. If speed is greater than 0.1, so we're moving, and health bar dot current stamina is greater than 0, then we decrease the stamina. So health bar current stamina equals math F move towards, and again, whatever the current stamina is in 0, so we're decreasing it. And then we update it right here with update the stamina bar. And that's just like mana and health bars on the health bar controller. I just copied one of them and made it an update stamina bar, which is the float fill amount equals current stamina divided by max stamina. And then the stamina bar image dot fill amount equals fill amount. So the same as we did for the health bar and the mana bar. So we update the stamina bar in the health bar code. And then if speed is less than 0.1, we stopped. And the health bar current stamina is less than the max stamina, then we increase it. So we regenerate it. So move towards the current stamina and then the max stamina. We're moving towards the max stamina. And again, by time dot delta time. And then we update the stamina bar again. Then once again, we have the camera, and currently I'm using the player position, Y plus 7 and Z minus 7. Then we have the footstep sounds, which I believe we had in the last one for movement. But if not, they're animation events in the player's run animation. I'll show them real quick, just in case I didn't. So that would be on, they're not on her yet, because I just put her in there not too long ago. But they are on the Dark Knight, because I was testing with him originally. And if we go to the run, scroll down to events, you'll see there are two, footstep 1 and footstep 2. And why do these keep going to none? That's weird. Huh. But anyway, um, that's what these two functions do. Is they're called from that animation event when the player's foot touches the floor and it plays the footstep. And these are just two different footstep sounds. All right, and then cast fire nova, we already did that. Cast fireballs, we already did that. Slash, um, again, we called that from up there, but it just plays that animation and checks to see if the blade aura is greater than 0 or not, so we can decrease mana a little bit while we're using it. And then these functions enable fire blade, ice blade, poison blade. We just set the color like variable main equals slash dot main. Main dot start color equals color dot red. So we're changing the color of the component on the sword. Okay. So sword blade dot get component renderer dot material equals blade fire, and then blade ice, and we set the aura to whatever that aura is. So fire is 1, ice is blade aura 2, and poison is blade aura 3. And blade aura again is just an int up here, so that's right here, a private int called blade aura. Then of course the footstep sounds, and I think I've got it all. I think I covered everything new. This one is disable blade auras, and it just sets it to 0 so that none of them are enabled. Sets the color back to gray on the material, and sets blade aura to 0 so that mana stops draining. Then check for hit. We did that. That's for a melee attack. Fire Nova Explosion. We did this for the Fire Nova. And once again, instead of the box thing for the Nova, we're using an overlap sphere. And yeah, that's it for that. We went over the enemy stuff. Because again, right now, he's just a punching bag. But I've got it basically set up for him to like go and attack. I just haven't tested and stuff yet. So we'll get into enemies attacking the player in the next one. Um, for now, because this was a lot and it's timely, so we'll do the enemies attacking the player in the next one. And again, the access objects, which I placed on the canvas, just like I did the health bar, is just so we can access objects easily, like the panels and stuff. All right, so that covers it all, I think. Okay, and why don't we check it out one more time, except we'll check it out through the build we just made so that you can see the proper color instead of that Pepto-Bismol shit. All right, so yeah, that's what it's That's what it actually looks like. That's what the settings are in the inspector. Is this deeper purple, and it's making it pink for some reason. And it's funny, like I said, it's not having a problem with the health of the mana, just this dark matter one that I made purple. So Unity doesn't like purple for some reason. But let's kill these guys with a firewall. Boom. You're all dead. And then let's kill these guys with a fire node. Well, let's attack one first. Ooh, I even got one of them with the firewall. Okay. Oh, that's slash. Oh, I'm glad I did this because that's new and I really didn't explain that, did I? So let's do that. The slash. Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's go back to the scene. Burst compiler, my ass. Come on. What is this? All right, so let's go back to the scene. Let's go here. Make her visible. Okay, so that's slash. That's right here. Okay, and what it is a particle effect, as you can see right here, the particle system, and it's placed right about here in front of her. I have it tilted a little bit too. You can tilt it to your liking. But that's an effect I found on the Unity Asset Store. So if you want like a sword trail, there's plenty of good ones on the Unity Asset Store. I found this one and I grabbed it and I just placed it on the player. Okay. And in the code, where is it? Yep, public particle system slash. So that's what you're seeing with the sword trail is that particle system slash I just showed you. And that's why when we attack, we say play slash because it plays that trail effect. So where is it? It's temp enemy does not equal no. Yeah. So slash, this runs the function slash, but this slash dot play is playing that sword trail, which we called slash up top, the particle effect, and the function is running this function, which plays the animation, and then the animation, takes care of the check for hit. So yeah, they're both called slash, but this one's with a capital S, so they're different. And this one is the function that plays the animation, and then the other one, the one with the non-cap, is the declaration of the particle effect for the sword trail, and we play it when we attack. So that's what's going on there. Okay, so I think I covered everything. If I missed anything and you're not sure about how something's done because I missed something, or hey, if you're not sure how something's done and you want to ask, you don't understand the way I explained it, then leave a comment and tell me, and I'll try to elaborate on whatever I missed or you don't understand, okay? But this was a long one, and I believe I covered everything that's new, and that's some cool stuff, right? So let's go back in here and see the Pepto-Bismol looking dark matter. And I'll probably report that bug because, like I said, it does. See, now it's purple in the editor. It does that. It goes back and forth, especially if you close out of it and start it back up, it'll be the way it should be. But then a little testing in and it'll turn that Pepto-Bismol pink color. The red from the health does not do that, and the blue from the normal mana does not do that. So, but yeah, let's slash effect, the enemy Health bar and marker. Picking. See, oh, that turned red. Why did that do that? See, that shouldn't have happened. It should have been white from the start like that. See, that one worked. I don't know why it didn't work the first time. That was weird. But see, now it's resetting it to what their current health is. But if you notice, that's weird. I'm telling you, Unity is so freaking buggy, man. Alright, so yeah, let's kill the rest of these guys with a Nova. Boom! And then kill some more with the Firewall. Boom! And let's take out the rest so you can get them all in one shot. Oh shit. Block that way, yeah. This should get ya. Oh, I don't have enough mana. That's right, we got enough for a Nova. Boom, you're dead. Okay, so that's this one. And hope you liked it. And again, if you want to see how I did this, let me know. But leave a comment down below and like the video. And if I can get 20 likes and 20 comments, I'll make a video about this shader here. And that's it for this one. So hope I earned your subscription. And when you subscribe, hit that bell notification so you find out when the next part drops as soon as it drops. And in that one, we'll discuss the enemies attacking back at the player. And that goblin, I want to have a couple different types of them. All right. So I want to have one that like does a melee attack on you. I want to have another that stands back and does a ranged attack and maybe throws an axe or something at you. And then maybe one more that acts kind of like the shaman for the imps in Diablo that can resurrect dead ones and bring them back. So I want to have a couple different ones. And we'll deal with that in the next part, in part 5. So this has been part 4. Hope you liked it. And until next time, peace out.